Page 25 is where we're at in the grammar book. 25. And we're talking about adverbs today. Um, you guys know about those. You've been using those for a while now. So this will be a quick little lesson. Let me get it all clear here. All right, so adverbs, they tell how, when, where, why, and to what extent. Usually they end in ly. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. But these are the important questions that you need to remember when you're looking for an ly adverb, or like when it's on your dress up list and you're trying to think of a good ly adverb to put in your paper. Ask yourself these questions: how, when, where, why, and to what extent. That'll help you come up with a good ly adverb. And it's also in the margin here for you. But here's your example. The deer carefully hid in the secluded thicket. So carefully, that's the easy one to identify because it has a ly, and you're just going to, again, put adv. So we're going to start labeling these now. And it does talk about how it's a dress up, but you guys already know that. It's already on your list. So then we're going to talk about something called noun of direct address. Noun of direct address is when it's a noun. Usually it's a person, but sometimes it's another kind of noun used to refer to someone directly. It names the person spoken to. So yeah, most of the time it is a person, noun of direct address. It can appear at any natural pause in a quoted sentence. So this is going to be inside a quote. The noun of direct address is always in a quote. So when you have speaking parts, right? Robin, tomorrow you will win the contest, his friend said. Tomorrow, Robin, you will win the contest, his friend said. Tomorrow you will win the contest, Robin, his friend said. Notice Robin, Robin, Robin. That is the noun of direct address because his friend is addressing Robin. So when you address someone, you're speaking to them. Like, JC, you have a beautiful sweater on today, right? I'm talking to JC, so I'm going to put her name in the sentence. That's in the quote. So she would technically be the noun of direct address. So that's all it is. So when you have a speaking part, if they're talking to somebody specific, that's the noun of direct address. Here's the trick, because the noun of direct address is not the subject of the sentence. That's where it gets a little tricky, okay? It never is. So in these sentences, the you, the word, the pronoun you is the subject in the sentence, not Robin, because he's talking to Robin, but he's addressing Robin and then saying you. So when you see this in this book, the subject is not going to be the person that they're addressing. It's going to be you. And it's usually you because they're talking to that person. Okay. That's what this paragraph explains right here. It's the pronoun you is the subject. All right. And then there's a comma rule. And we can kind of see they made the commas dark in these examples right here. So it just depends on where the noun of direct address is in the sentence. Put a comma around it. If it's first, comma after. If it's in the middle, comma before and after. If it's at the end, comma right before. And there's one after, but that's just because it's the end of the quote here. Okay. So those are the comma rules. And they're going to mess up on purpose. They're going to forget those commas, and you have to put them in. So like this one, Robin, you should enter the contest, his friend suggested. So Robin, comma, you're just going to put it in. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. There's a little more on the back. 26. Yes, JC.
For the noun of direct address, do we have to label it NDA at the top?
No, you're not going to label it NDA. I don't even think you're going to label it. Oh, you do label it as an N for noun, but you just know in your head it's noun of direct address. That's a good question. but it will be labeled in. All right. Homophones, you guys know about those. We've been talking about those a lot. Those are words that sound the same and have different spellings and different meanings. Today we're talking about its and your. It's and its, one has an apostrophe, one does not. Your and your, same thing. By the way, this one drives me nuts. Because I don't know about you, but I see it wrong all the time, like a lot, like in text messages or emails or even in signs, or on shirts or, on Facebook, everywhere I go. That's a hard one. They use the wrong one, your and your. But let's talk about its first. So it's without an apostrophe is actually a possessive pronoun. Its target, meaning the target belongs to it. This is the only time we don't have an apostrophe because, like, if I say Harmony's hat, I would put an apostrophe there, and the hat belongs to Harmony, right? But in this case, if it's it, there's no apostrophe when it's possessive. Because when there is an apostrophe, we know that's a contraction, right? It is. So here it is, it's a contraction. It's spring, or it is spring. Actually, it should say it's fall because it's fall right now, not spring. So it is has the apostrophe. It's not possessive for the word it. Without it, without the apostrophe, it's possessive. And then we've got your and your. So your without the apostrophe is a possessive pronoun. Your bow. The bow belongs to you. With the apostrophe, it's a contraction. You're right. You are right. So I always do a little check in my head. And if I can say you are in the sentence and it still makes sense, then I know it's going to need the apostrophe. Okay, that's a little check you can do. And all you're going to do here, because they love making mistakes just for you, and they're going to make mistakes on this one just for you. So you're going to see they're going to do it wrong, and all you need to do is put a line through it and put it correct above it. So it's trying to hide, but its antlers are showing. So it is trying to hide, but its antlers belonging to it, are showing. You're on your way to the archery contest. You are on your way to the archery contest. Okay. So that's it for that. Good morning, William. I see you. We just finished page 26. I recorded this, so if you need to watch that grammar lesson later, you can. When you're bored and you're just sitting around with nothing to do, you can go, I know what I can do. I can watch Mrs. Cisneros talk about adverbs and noun of direct address and homophones because it's so exciting, right? Okie doke. Anybody feel like reading this today? Any takers? JC, I appreciate you. You're always the first to volunteer. I appreciate that. Go. I know Kaden does too. You guys take turns, but go ahead, Jason. I mean, Jason.
Robin, oh,
JC, sorry.
it's okay. Robin immediately took offense and challenged the forester. Sir, do you see the deer at the edge of the wood? I bet you 20 pounds that I can hit it.
Good. All right. Offense is the word. Um, like the best way to explain offense is when somebody says something and you're just like, ah, like you're almost hurt by it or bothered by it or a little resentful by it. Okay. So he's offended, offense. In football, if you're a football fan like me, sometimes this word is offense, right? And that is the team that has the ball is the offense, and then the defense is the other side. So, anyway, but in this, you read it correctly. It's offense when you're talking about an emotional attack. You're offended. Okay, there's that. Four articles. Go ahead and find those by yourself. They are all those today. And then how about Kaden? Those 8 nouns. There's 8 today.
Robin,
Good.
offense,
Good.
Challenged.
That's going to be a
Oh,
verb, actually. Yeah.
forester.
Good.
Deer.
Yes. Good.
Edge.
Yep.
Wood.
Yep.
Pounds.
Pounds. Good. One more.
Sir.
Yes. Very good. You got it, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And then pronouns, Harmony, where are the pronouns?
Color. You.
You is a pronoun. Good.
I.
Good.
You.
You again.
I.
I again. Good. One more.
Last one is what? It.
Oh, good. You found it. Very good. It. We don't see that one very often. But there it is. It. Good. Nice job. And then, William, I'm going to have you do the adjective and the adverb. Where's the adjective?
20.
20. Very good. So adjectives tell how many. Good. How about the adverb?
Immediately.
That's an easy one. How about you do the coordinating conjunction too?
And
And very good. Okay, back to you, JC. Do you want to do the prepositional phrases or the that clause?
I'll do the phrases.
Okay, cool. You see them in there?
Is the first one at the edge of the wood?
Yes. Well, at the edge,
Okay.
one. But you kind of, I mean, they're right next to each other, basically.
Oh, of the wood.
There you go. I was like, yeah,
I was trying to look for the other one.
yeah, it was right there, right next to each other. So at the edge and of the wood. And a way to ask yourself is at what? At the edge. Oh, okay. Of what? Of the wood. Very good. How about the that clause, Kaden?
Um, that I can hit it.
Perfect. Good job. Put that there. And then the last one for harmony, the subject verb pairs. You can do both subject verb pairs. They go together.
Took.
Took is verb. Good.
Robin.
Robin's a subject. Nice.
Challenged.
Good. Another verb.
Offense.
Actually, that one is going to stay just a noun. So
Keep going. Forester. Nope. You're looking for verb. See.
see, good. That's one.
It. Which one did you skip? Do.
Do, good.
You.
You is going to actually be the subject. You're right, not sir, because that's the noun of direct address.
Sir.
S-
Me. Okay, keep going. You're looking for more verbs. Bet.
There you go. Good. That's a verb.
I.
I is the subject here. Good.
Wait, one more.
In the that clause.
Hit.
Hit is a verb.
What's a can?
Good.
Hit. Yep.
Got
Okay.
that.
And then what? What's the subject? I. Good job.
There you go. Nice. That was a lot. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 subjects. Robin, this is one of those that we just learned today in the lesson, that the subject is not going to be the noun of direct address here, sir, but you, and then I, and all those verbs. I think we got everything covered now. So capitals, you can find those by yourself. Those are pretty easy. Don't forget the I's. Comma, William, we have a couple comma rules we got to take care of.
The comma before end.
The comma before, before and right here. Is that what you're talking about? Take it out. Okay, take that out. And then there's one more comma we got to either put in or take out. I'll give you a clue. It has to do with that noun of direct address that we talked about.
Sir.
There you go.
Sir.
Right after sir. Yep. So he's talking to the sir. He's saying, "Sir, do you see the deer at the edge of the wood?" Okay, and that makes you the subject. Very good. And then we got an end mark, period. Camelia, I see you coming in. We just finished page 27, but I'm recording it so you can watch it later if you need to, okay? All right. Any questions about this page before we move on? No? Okay. Very good, you guys. This book is harder than last year because we're already to the point where we're labeling everything and it's just going to get more and more. But you can handle it. You got this. Gotta erase that. All right, so last week, let's go ahead and get our history books out. Oops. Last week you talked about, or you wrote about the Mayflower mishap. And I do have a little bit of time if anybody wants to share what you wrote about the Mayflower mishap. You guys wrote 2 paragraphs last week. And you had the ly adverb and the who which clause in it. Does anybody feel like reading your paragraphs this morning? It's up to you. You don't have to, but I just want to open it up in case you want to. JC, okay. Anybody else? All right. All right. That's all right. Good morning, Camila, by the way. So JC, would you like me to pull it up or do you want to pull it up on your side?
Can you pull it up for me, please?
I sure can. Yes, I sure can. And I haven't had a chance to grade everybody's work yet, but it's on my to-do list today. So don't worry if it's not graded yet. Okay. Mayflower mishap. Let me make it just a little bigger here so we can see it better. All right, there you go, whenever you're ready.
Goodman John Howland, along with other Englishmen, boarded a large merchant ship called the Mayflower in 1620 in search of freedom of religion. Venturing the Atlantic Ocean, they traveled in the direction of America. A horrible storm occurred during their journey. There was thunder and lightning, and massive waves rattled the boat vehemently. Praying the ship stayed afloat, the passengers stayed huddled below the deck. While below deck, they were cramped, frigid, and faced trepidation.
Nice. Okay.
To avoid the crowded conditions, Goodman perilously crawled to the upper deck of the ship. Due to the turbulence, he was abruptly tossed into the ocean. He snatched a rope as he was about to fall into the water. He yelled desperately for assistance as he swayed over the ocean. His fellow sailors had fortunately witnessed him fall from the ship. With the boat hook, they pulled him to safety. Goodman was overjoyed to have been saved. Even though he was back on the ship, Goodman knew that getting to the New World would be an extensive and challenging quest.
Nice. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Very good. I really like it, JC. Nicely done. Man, you've got some great vocabulary words in there. And you only had to do two, but I see four in there. So good job. And they're very well placed. I really like how you wrote that. It's so good. Nice job. Definitely. So, one thing I want to remind everybody is about the checklist, and the vocabulary words are on there, but there's also the ly adverbs. By the way, I noticed, oops, that's not what I wanted to share. Hang on a second. I noticed there was like five or maybe even more in your second paragraph of ly adverbs. You had a bunch in there. They were so good. Um, and don't forget about who, which clause. And so I want to make sure everybody uses this checklist again this year. It says this is how I grade your stuff. So make sure you guys include your ly adverb and your who which this last week. I think we're adding one more this week. So each week it's going to be a longer and longer list. And just to forewarn you, the banned words are coming. They're not here yet, but they're coming. So watch out for those, okay? So just want to give you a little reminder on that. You guys can go ahead and turn to page 42 in your book. We're moving on to a new lesson. We're still going to use the story sequence chart this week. Gosh, I've got to look back to remember. Yeah, we didn't use the story sequence chart. We're using the story sequence chart this week. So this is a you guys have learned it last year, but we're going to use that this time. But before we start, I'm going to read this little paragraph at the bottom here of historical information, and then I actually have a little video that I want to show you leading into this lesson. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about ambush in the wilderness. So in the historical information here, it says in the 1700s, Spain, Britain, and France, who were bitter enemies, each had claims in North America. So that's what we've been studying so far. We've been studying about the Spanish. We also know about the Native Americans. They were here first, and then the Spanish, and then the Great Britain, they sent the British. And then France came, and that was what we were talking about last week. But they were all enemies because they all wanted a piece of the land. It's sad that in our human nature, that's what happens. If we all want the same thing, we fight over it. I mean, it's not the right thing to do, but it's kind of like part of our nature. And especially when you have groups of people representing different countries, they come in and they want a piece of the pie. Okay, they all want a piece. Hostilities between the British and the French grew when both desired to control the Ohio River Valley, which we're going to look at in a second here. The British colonists believed the territory belonged to them, but the French built forts such as Fort Duquesne, I think is how you say this name, it's a French word, to keep them out. So basically, the British is like, that's ours. And the French is like, no, it's not, it's ours. We already built a fort, so it's ours. Conflicts erupted that led to a declaration of war. The war became known as the French and Indian War because many Indians fought alongside the French. So have you heard of the French and Indian War before? Give me a thumbs up if you have. Some of you know. That's okay. Okay. France won most of the early battles, but Britain eventually won the war and thus controlled almost half of North America, chiefly the Atlantic coast and the land east of the Mississippi River. The story in this lesson is an account of one of the battles in the conflict between the British and the French and Indians in North America. So you guys know battles are smaller versions of the war. And every war that we have in our history in this country, there have been battles at the same time leading up to war. And that's exactly what was going on at this time. So I have a pretty cool video that I want to share with you to help you kind of have a visual. Um, that's how I am. I'm a visual person, so this helps me to see and hear a little bit more about it. So, oops. Okay. Let me share this so you guys can watch it.
From the very beginning, colonialism in America meant competition. European countries were eager to gobble up as much land as possible in the New World. Sometimes this competition turned into open warfare, and the French and Indian War is a perfect example of this. Here's a crash course of 5 things about the war to get you up to speed. North America was a big, beautiful place full of endless opportunities, and Great Britain and France each wanted a piece of the action. The British controlled their 13 colonies and were looking to expand west. The French occupied Canada and were looking to expand south. It was inevitable that they'd bump into each other, and that's exactly what happened in the Ohio River Valley, an important trading area with access to the Mississippi River. The French and Indian War marked the debut of 21-year-old George Washington, a lieutenant colonel for the militia in the British colony of Virginia. In 1754, he was ordered to protect a British fort near what is now Pittsburgh. On the way, Washington encountered a French military unit, and the two sides fought in the first battle of the French and Indian War, the Battle of Jumonville Glen. Washington was young, but he was quickly gaining the experience he would need to eventually command the Continental Army. Years of territorial scuffles turned into full-blown declarations of war in 1756. As fighting broke out, the British and French sought allies among the local Native American populations. The French were familiar with many tribes through trade and recruited the Potawatomi, Winnebago, Ojibwa, Mississauga, and the Huron, while the British turned to the Iroquois Confederacy. At first, the French were winning, a lot. They simply had more troops and better supplies than the British Army and drove them back towards the 13 colonies. But the tide turned in 1757 when British Secretary of State William Pitt took control of the war effort. Dreaming of a vast British Empire, he made it his mission to defeat the French in North America, pouring in generous funds to beef up military resources on the ground. The war ended with the French defeat at the Battle of Quebec and the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The British gained control of Canada and all land east of the Mississippi River. It may seem that the British made out well after all was said and done, but there was a catch. You see, William Pitt borrowed heavily to finance the French and Indian War, which left his nation in tons of debt. To make up for it, the British taxed American colonists up the wazoo. Americans didn't particularly appreciate this. Years of protests, rallies, town hall meetings, and petitions would eventually lead to the American Revolution and the creation of the United States. The French and Indian War may not have had the glorious battles or fearless heroes of other great conflicts, but it was one of the most consequential wars in American history. It also opened the eyes of a young military leader to the tyranny of the British, a man who would go on to be the first American president.
Right. So it's just interesting to me how money was involved in that whole process, and it still is a factor today. People who are wanting to be in control, they have access to a lot of money, and it's unfortunate that money plays such a huge role in things, but that's exactly what happened. So the French and the Indians were together, they were winning until that guy comes along and has all this money, and he just puts all this money into the war so they could win. And George Washington was the first that actually saw the truth about it. And then later he became president. So it's pretty interesting to see how, even just in that battle, how it led to the American Revolution, and how it opened up the eyes of the Americans as to what was going on and what the British plan was. And then here we are today. So go to page 43. Does anybody have any questions about the video or anything about this part of history that we're talking about today? If you think of anything, let me know, because we're going to just keep talking about that. 43 This week, like I said earlier, rather than just doing a keyword outline, we are actually going to do a story sequence chart. And it's set up a little bit different in this book than what we had in the binder last year. But I just wanted to show you these three main parts. Remember this? We used to talk about Kung Fu Panda. That's how we remember these parts of the story sequence chart. Characters and setting. This is the first paragraph. Who's in the story? What are they like? When does it happen? Where do they live and go? And in Kung Fu Panda, remember we talked about how Po is playing with his little action figures in the beginning, and how you can see in the out his bedroom window that it's China. You can tell it's China. So it sets up that characters and setting. And then the conflict and problem. This is the part of the story that makes it the most interesting and entertaining. And if you think about it, pretty much every book or story or even movie has this. They have a conflict or a problem, and that's what makes it interesting is how are they going to get out of this situation? And these are the questions we'll ask for that middle paragraph. What do they need or want? What do they think? What do they say and do? In Kung Fu Panda, this is when, you know, Tai Lung is defeating everybody and he's just beating up everybody, including Po. And so that's where the problem is. How are they going to defeat him? And then we have the climax and resolution. This is where it all comes together at the end. And remember, we used to draw a little mountain, like a sharp mountain peak, and then we drew a little guy at the top. Yeah, you remember that? And one way is like he lands on the spikes, and the other way he lands on the fluffy cloud. So that's kind of like a visual on what's going to happen to this character. Is he going to die, or is he going to be okay? Is he going to defeat the bad guy, or is he going to die? You know, it's we don't know if he's going to be lost forever or if he'll find his way home. That's that part of the story, the climax. And that's the part that really grabs us. When we read the book or we read the story or we watch the movie, we're like, what's going to happen next? That's a really important part too at the end. And then how it's resolved. So we know with the Kung Fu Panda, he defeats Tai Lung because he has the special power. And that's he has the wushu pinky hold or whatever it was called. Remember he went skadoosh. How is the problem solved? What happens after and what is learned? So that is the direction we're going this week in your writing, using a historical event, the French and Indian War. Okay, so this is the passage we're going to read. Even though this passage has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, you guys are only writing 3 paragraphs, and you're going to find those elements to the story, the characters and setting, conflict problem, climax resolution, and then you're going to write your own version of this story here. Or it's more like an article. This whole book is really factual, about real events. So does anybody feel like reading the passage today on page 44? Anybody feel like reading? No? Okay, that's okay. You don't have to. Someday you guys are going to be like, all right, I'm ready. Let's go. This is called Ambush in the Wilderness. It was a hot summer day in 1755, but the forest of the Ohio River Valley seemed dark, gloomy, and eerily quiet. I'm going to pause there just for a second because I want you to notice they are setting the scene. That is a skill that we're going to talk about this week too. How that suddenly gave you a visual, right? They didn't just say on a hot summer day, blah, blah, blah. They went into dark, gloomy, eerily quiet. So you're kind of like visualing now. Maybe it's overcast, gloomy, maybe it's foggy and eerie. That means it's like creepy almost. Okay. That gives you a visual. The British Army trudged on, led by General Edward Braddock. Braddock was a well-trained, experienced officer. However, his training and experience had been on the vast open fields of England, not in the dense wilderness of America. Additionally, he knew little of the ways of the Native American warriors. Okay, so he's coming in, he doesn't understand the Native Americans and the actual place is different with the trees, and he can't see like in the open fields, you can see far. So it's a little, he's intimidated by all that. A young American officer was at his side. His name was George Washington. We know that guy. Washington knew the terrain of the land well. He had spent much time in the woods. He also had already been involved in battles with the French and Indian forces, so he knew their tactics. The objective of the British Army was to capture Fort Duquesne. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but that's how I'm saying it. The French had built his fort to keep the British, this fort, to keep the British out of the Ohio River Valley. This particular land was very valuable because it had several rivers needed for trading goods. The British believed the land belonged to them. The soldiers were now just 10 miles from the fort, hoping for a quick victory. Suddenly, shots and shouts rang out. Fierce Indians and ruthless French soldiers charged at the British from all sides. They quickly killed many of the officers, including General Braddock. The soldiers panicked. Washington soon took control. He fought hard. 2 horses were shot out from under him. Musket bullets and arrows whizzed by him, and 4 shots tore right through his coat. Still, he was able to lead many of the survivors to safety. They escaped with their lives, and George Washington was hailed a hero. This ambush in the wilderness was just one of the many battles of the French and Indian War that lasted from 1754 to 1763. So 9 years. 9 years this war, this battle was going on. One of the battles. Okay, so did you guys notice at the end, George Washington, and this is a really cool fact about George Washington. He was shot at multiple times. I think it's like 6 times he was shot at, and they missed him. Sadly, they got his horse a couple of times. That's the sad part. But he survived. And even when there's shots, 4 shots tore right through his coat. So you can imagine he's like riding, and maybe a piece, you know, how you in a coat, when you put your arms out, there's fabric that hangs down here, like under your armpit. I mean, they were so close to killing him by getting his heart, and they didn't. So there was a reason why he survived that. And we know that he eventually became the president of the United States, but that was amazing. It's a miracle, actually, that he was shot at that many times and still survived. That's a really awesome fact and basically trivia that we need to remember about who he was and what happened to him. All right, any questions about what we just read or anything you want to say about that? All right. In my mind, it just seems like, man, God had a plan for him. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, it was the act of God that he survived all that. I mean, that just doesn't normally happen. So he's the only one that has that particular story. All right, this is page 45. And here we've got the story sequence chart. It's nice. They have it all set up for you. You don't even have to write it out. Remember how we used to draw a line down and draw across and make the boxes? Ta-da! Here it is. So you've got in the side here, you've got, this is what we need to look for in this story that we just read. And we need to start out by making that first paragraph about the characters and setting. You need 4, but 5 is optional. See the parentheses there. All right, so, and what I'm going to have you guys do is work ahead. We're going to kind of take turns sharing ideas on what to put on this story sequence chart. Oh, Kaden, I saw your note. No problem. Just give me a wave when you got to go, okay? All right. And I'm recording so you can get the last 5 minutes here. So in this passage that we just read, we're going to start out with the setting, and open your book wide so you can see it on one side and this on the other side. You can look at both. So I'll start with JC. What year was it and where are they? Let's start with the setting at Roman numeral 1 here.
It's 1755 and they're at the Ohio River Valley.
Okay.
Also, it's hot. It's summer.
It's summer. Yeah. So what do you think? Should we put like summer 1755 maybe? So we know it's hot.
Yeah.
Okay. Summer. And by the way, like I said, you guys can go ahead. And if you have a different way of doing it, that's okay. And the Ohio River Valley. Do you think it's important to mention that they were in a forest too? Do you think?
We can mention it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking because Ohio River Valley is the name of that place, so we can count that as one, maybe. Let me see if I can lighten this a little bit. So what if we do forest? And then I'm going to put Ohio RV. Okay, good. And then Harmony, who is the first person that we hear about in this passage? Who do they talk about first?
General Edward Braddock.
Yes, General Edward Braddock. I'm just going to put like Gen Braddock. We'll count that as one. And then who was with General Braddock? Who was he with?
Who was he with? He was with. Look, who was he with? George Washington.
Mm-hmm. He was with George Washington, but before we talk about George Washington, look back at the beginning of the first paragraph. Who did he lead? Who was General Braddock leading? Which army was it?
Look. British.
Yes, British Army.
Brit.
Yep. He was leading the British Army. So I think that might be important to put here. So I'm gonna put British and then Army. But if you have a different way to put that, it's okay. We can keep it whatever makes sense to you guys. He led them. Okay. Good, Harmony. And then how about William? Let's talk a little bit because we're setting the scene here in the first paragraph, right? We're telling where they are, who's there. What is it about General Braddock that we need to know at the beginning? I mean, we know he led the army, but what did he know about the place where he was?
Uh,
What was his experience in?
his experience was in fields operating.
In the fields, the open fields of England? Yeah. Not the dense forests. I wonder how we could put that in the outline. That he was well trained and he understood how to fight in an open field, but he did not know how to fight in a forest. How can we put that on the outline? You have any ideas, William?
Well trained.
Yeah, and that's a hyphenated word, so I would say we could count that as one. So well trained, and then what?
Fields.
Fields.
And then that's forest.
Okay, I like that. Basically meaning he was well trained in the fields, but not the forest. Or you can circle forests and cross it out. Sometimes we do that symbol too. Okay, and then Caden, that pretty much sets up that first opening with General Braddock, but we have another person, another character to talk about. So who does it talk about next?
George Washington.
Yes. So George Washington, maybe we could just put Washington because we know it's George. So Washington. And then what do we know about Washington?
He was a young officer, or
A
he was
young,
young.
wait, say that last part again.
He was young.
Okay, I think young, that's important to know. And then what was the other thing you said?
He was a young officer.
Okay. He was at his side. So he was basically helping the British leader, General Braddock, right? A young American officer was at his side. So I wonder if we need a word here to kind of, well, I like officer too. That's a good one. Maybe let's put officer. I agree with you, Kaden. And then maybe on the next line, we could talk about how he helped him.
Mhm.
Yeah. He was at his side. So can we start with that, Camila? Can we put that he helped, like maybe W helped? And then how did he help, Camila? How did he help General Braddock? Look at that second paragraph. That's what I'm looking at.
He knew the terrain of the land well.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how he helped Braddock because Braddock didn't know, right? He only knew how to fight in open fields. So how can we put that in 2 words here or symbols or something?
Terrain, land, and then a check mark.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Good thinking. A check mark meaning check, I know it. That's good. I didn't think of that one. That was a good one. Check, I know about that. The other he helped in another way too. JC toward the end of that second paragraph because he knew about the land, but he also knew something else that was really important. What else did he know?
He also knew their tactics.
Yes, yes. So maybe we should use 5 here. So how can we add that he knew about their tactics?
We can put involved
Okay.
and then battles
Okay.
and then tactics, and then we can put a check mark beside it, like he knew.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I like the check mark idea. Involved, battles. Wait, is that what you said? Was there
Yeah.
one more word?
Tactics with a check mark beside it.
Tactics, that's what it was. And it was the French and Indian. I wonder if we should squeeze up here like F and I, F plus I. That way we know it's the French and Indian tactics. Wasn't the British tactics because he's working with the British, so we want to make sure it's clear. He knew their tactics because he knew the land. Good. That actually really sets up that opening paragraph about the setting, the people, and what they know and how they helped. And now we're going to move into the conflict and the problem, which was definitely between the French and the British. They were fighting over the land, right? Right there at that fort. So the next part goes into that. They desired to capture Fort Duquesne or do does anybody know how to say that word? Maybe I should look it up. I know it's a French word. feel like I should know this word. Let's ask the internet when all else fails, right? I'm just teasing on that. The internet doesn't always know, okay? U-E-S. I got this. I got this. Let's find out. Okay, you guys ready?
Fort Duquesne.
Oh, I had it right.
Fort Duquesne.
Fort Duquesne. Yeah, French is weird. There's no A in there, but that's how you say it. All right. So they desired, I'm just going to put this. If you guys have something else, go with what you're thinking. They desired to capture. This is the next part here. And I'm just going to put for Fort FT and then Duquesne, which is spelled so different than how it sounds. U-E-S-N-E. They desired to capture Fort Duquesne. All right. And what I'm going to do, because I want to go over the next couple of pages with you, I'm going to leave that as the Roman numeral 2, and you guys are going to fill in the rest of the information based on that, leading into the battle, right? Because that is the conflict that they're having. It's a problem. And you're going to answer these questions in this little box as you go through these facts. And then at the end here, this is it when Washington, and I'm just going to help you just by writing in Roman numeral 3, he took control. And this is the climax, right? This is the part where he's going to take control and then he starts resolving the problem with them. And the best part about the story is that even though he was shot at 6 times, he survived because we needed him in our country to be our president someday. So at the very end, at the bottom of this, we're going to talk about how he became America's hero. Okay. And then remember, in your checklist, we're going to look at that in a second. Use that last sentence to make a new title. So that would be a cool title to talk about Washington being the hero. All right. You guys got at least that much on your paper? Okay. Okay. Bye, Kaden. See you next week. Let's move
Thank
on.
you.
You're welcome. Look really quick on this page. We're not going to fill in this page. We're just going to basically talk about it. But this is page 46. And as you're working on your paper this week, I want you to look at this page and use some of these ideas. But basically, it's talking about developing the setting. And we talked about that a little bit when that first part of the first paragraph, it talked about how it was dark and gloomy and eerily quiet. Those words are great to use to set the scene for what you're writing about. And they're talking about things like, what is the day like? Consider the temperature, the sky, the sun, the air, the wind. That just creates an image for the reader. So go through these questions and you can take notes here for your homework to help you come up with a way to set the scene. Here's the example. The sky was gray, the air was hot and damp around the river. And here's another example here. What was the forest like when they were in that part of the story? The trees seemed endless. The only sounds were the rattling of supplies and the buzzing of flies. And that just really creates like a movie scene almost in your head. All right, we're going to move along here. Flip over to style practice. We're not going to go through these today because we're running out of time, but basically the who, which clause, you guys are really good at those. But this book is kind of handy dandy because they give you some ideas of where you can put in a who, which clause. And guess what? I'm okay if you want to use some of these sentences in your paper. It's okay with me. All right, you don't have to, but you can. And then, of course, some ly adverbs here to dress up your writing on how things are done, talking about those verbs. And then let's actually skip over to the vocabulary page. Some of you printed out your vocabulary cards, which is great. And some parents just could not figure out how to do it. So I'm not going to worry about that. This is lesson 5. So if you go back to your page 322, lesson 5 is here. And on your paper, you need to have at least 2 vocabulary words. If you want to do more than that, I'm good with that. I'm not going to stop you from using vocabulary words. These are fantastic words to use. So for lesson 5, we have animosity. Strong dislike that shows in action. So animosity. There was definitely animosity between the British and the French. Definitely. That's what was going on. And then adroitly is skillfully or cleverly. Adroitly. That's an ly, meaning skillfully. So you can think about how to use that as an ly adverb. By the way, I'm okay with you using it as a vocabulary word and a dress up. Normally, I don't let you double dip. Remember, we talked about double dipping last year. So there are certain things that I don't want you to double dip with, like sentence openers when we get to that. But for vocabulary and dress up, I'm okay you doing the same word. Onrush, a strong, fast movement forward. Onrush. There was an onrush of soldiers or an onrush of attack. Warily, meaning watchfully and cautiously looking out for danger. So there you go, another ly adverb. So use 2 of those words in your writing this week as you work on those 3 paragraphs. You can decide which ones to use. If you want to challenge yourself and use all 4, go for it. And like I liked how JC you did it correct with the VOC in parentheses right before the word. So that's how I want you guys to label it in your paper. So that's what's new about this book, as opposed to the binders we had last year. So, all right, that was a lot of talking, but we got through it. Do you guys have any questions about what you're doing this week? You guys are good? All right, so you're going to write your 3 paragraphs about ambush in the wilderness. You need to finish your story sequence chart first. And then I'm going to have an opportunity for you guys to read. So I want at least 2 people to read. So, and JC, I know you love to read yours and I love to hear yours. So I do want to hear yours again and somebody else. So be thinking about that because I know you guys are great writers and I love to hear what you have. So that's it, you guys. Have a good one. See you next week. Bye. Good job, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Camila. Bye, Harmony.